Hi, everybody. This is Nancy O'Neill. Welcome to tonight's edition of That Man Jesus Ministry. I'm joined today by one guest, possibly two guests. My first guest name is Francine Houston. She is a full-time seamstress. We've known each other for several years. Francine and I actually met through an organization called Women Who Inspire. I collaborated with one of the leaders of an organization called Lupus Detroit, and we actually had a couple events together. So since then, Francine and I have stayed connected on Facebook with Women Who Inspire. She has written at least one book about her lupus journey, and we hosted a book signing for her. So that was really exciting. She's been to some glam days that we collaborated together on. And I'm really proud of Francine and how well she's carried herself through the health challenges that she's gone through. And without further ado, I will let her continue to introduce herself. Francine, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Francine Houston. Like she said, I'm a lupus survivor. I am a full-time seamstress, but I also have a clothing line called FH Designs where I make business casual clothes. And the books is under Scenic Media where I do graphic services and books. So far, I got I think 6 books out because I started including self-care as well as talk about my journeys that I went through. So I think that's about it.
Okay. You said you have a total of 6 books, not just one book?
Yeah, I kept on writing. Now my second book is called Life After Lupus.
Okay.
My third book I do poetry. I got a poetry book called Strength of a Woman. I did another poetry book called Random Thoughts. I did 2 self-care books. Um, I did the S on my chest and the self care guy, and I got some anthologies I did with some people too. But I
That
kind of slowed down on anthologies because they're kind of costly. So
I understand. So the anthologies, was this a collection of books? I'm sorry, stories.
stories like what's it called? I can't remember
Like
what it's called. It's
fiction,
about a woman. It's one by Vanessa Wearing. She did something about the power of a woman or something like that. I
okay.
did something with her concerning the word woman, and I became international bestseller. That's her. I was just collaborating, and then I did one. I did a couple with the lady Akia Roberts. She did professionalism. We did professionalism and the self care edition with her. I supposed to do money management, but I stepped back because I'm not good at money. So I'm learning money. If they actually do this, I could probably write something actually after I actually get out of debt. Because right now I'm not writing about money until I actually conquer that. So yeah.
I relate to that. We do have another guest on. Her name is Angie Thomas. This is one of my friends from college. Angie, did you just come to support Kim, or did you actually want to introduce yourself as well?
Oh, I was just coming to support Kim. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Do you mind sending Kim a link? I have sent her what I had, and she's saying she can't get in.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So while we're waiting for everyone to come on, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about the topic that we're discussing this evening. I'm really excited because it's about new beginnings. And just to give you all a little bit of background information, I started the ministry last September after my mother passed in memory of her and to carry on her legacy. And when I started That Man Jesus, it started as just a total, fully online platform where I came on 2 to 3 times a week and ministered the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then I started to expand. I started inviting young ladies to join me, specifically after the website launched, and that launched around, I want to say, December. So towards the end of December, one of my childhood friends joined me for the first weekly online Bible study. And it was great. And so we've grown since then. So if our final guest for the evening comes on, that'll be 4 ladies. So I just love how God is continuing to bless the ministry and expand it. So it started off with just the YouTube podcast. Then we expanded to the website, which, had a successful launch. And now other women are joining us for our weekly online Bible study. So every week on Tuesday evenings at approximately 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we bring on guests to the show, and we just discuss whatever topic I feel led for us to talk about that week. So we've kind of had this theme going on since the beginning of the year on new beginnings. And oh, here she is. Kim is here. Last Saturday, we actually had our first in-person event at Tango's Restaurant. That's located in Southfield. So that was so exciting because I wasn't really sure how long it was going to take before we could start with the in-person event. So we are up and rolling, and I'm just like so thankful. The Bible talks about not despising small beginnings. So I'm so thankful from where God has brought us from. And I know, this is just the beginning and the tip of the iceberg, but we are moving full speed ahead. And so we have one more guest joining us. Her name is Kimberly Barnes. This is a referral that Angie gave me. Angie and I are college friends, and I'm going to go ahead and introduce Kim to her. She referred me over to Kim, who she said she would be great for the podcast. And Kim is really excited. So I'm glad she was able to join us this evening. So Kim, we just started introductions. So you came in right on time. I just wanted to read your bio so everybody knows who you are.
Thank you.
And it says, Kimberly is a devoted mother of 3, entrepreneur and licensed financial professional with over 2 decades of industry experience. Her work is deeply rooted in her faith and guided by a genuine desire to serve others with honesty and care. So when you say licensed professional, do you mean like financial services? Because some people might want to know like what type of professional licensure you actually have.
That's a great question. And yes, insurance and finance, basically retirement, insurance.
Okay.
Yeah, financial education is what we specialize in.
Okay, financial literacy. So Francine and I were just talking about this before you came on. So we should both be prime candidates. Okay, let me finish up your bio. I've got to figure out, I had to catch up where I was at. Her work is deeply rooted in her faith and guided by a genuine desire to serve others with honesty and care. She believes financial stewardship is a powerful tool for creating stability and freedom, and she's passionate about helping people walk confidently toward their goals. Above all, Kimberly strives to live a life that reflects her love for the Lord, her family, and her community. And we actually have another guest, Sandra C. Angie, is this one of your?
Yes, Sandra Carter is one of my good friends, also with Kimmy.
Yay! So we got the whole group, it looks like, tonight. Hi, Sandra. How are you?
I'm good. And you?
I'm doing well. So we're just getting started. I just introduced Ms. Barnes. I don't have your bio with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sandra. I'm friends with Angie and Kim.
Oh, okay.
She was just here to listen.
Oh, yes. I see. I apologize. Okay, no problem. Okay, so you may, if you're not going to be participating, Sandra, feel free to mute yourself. I don't think I have capacity to do that. If I do, I haven't quite learned that yet. I know how to mute myself, but not other people yet.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us. We love having people either, I love people watching us live. If they can't though, then watching us later is the next best thing. So any a week, this you'd be like part of our listening audience, and there's nothing wrong with that. So feel free to use emojis. You always also have a chat box. It's not available after the call is done, but any of you who are on right now, I have it up and open. Actually, the questions that we're going to be discussing tonight, well, it was just Francine and I on the phone. I went ahead and typed those questions in the chat box, so you can go and refer to those. And if you want to take a look at my website to look at this week's blog, which is related to what we're going to be talking to tonight, feel free to do that as well. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the questions. My first Thank you for the emojis. My first question is, what is something you plan to give up this year? So I will, since I'm the host, I can start first, kind of to launch things off. And I said, we got another guest. Oh my goodness, it's turning into a party line. Who this is?
I've been dropping the link to some of my other friends, so hopefully they're all.
Kawana. Okay.
Kawana.
Kawana. I'm glad I got her name right before she came on. Hi, Kawana. If you are part of our listening audience and you don't want to be recorded, and you can just continue to mute yourself, we appreciate your support. The chat box is open. If you would like to send emojis or ask questions in the chat box, feel free. So, first question, what is something you plan to give up this year? I actually took some notes myself, and I said that something that I want to give up this year is bad habits, such as not tracking, and I know Kim can attest to this. For you to grow and move to the next level, you actually have to be honest with yourself and admit where you are right now. So I had been kind of loosely tracking things. I gained some weight during COVID. I actually gained 30 pounds. I've lost 20 of those pounds. And the last 10 to 15 pounds, I've really been struggling with. Well, every time I talk to these fitness experts, and I've been parts of gyms and all of that. Now I have a treadmill. So I jog half a mile every day. I'm not tracking every day. And they say you don't want to be so obsessed with your weight that you check in every day, because it's not really going to fluctuate that much. But once I started to when you really get serious about meeting your goals, you really start to track daily, I say, or at least every other day or weekly. It kind of depends on what type of situation you're in. And the same goes for my finances, my health, fitness, all of that. So the next goal that I have for things I plan to give up this year is just tracking everything, which I already said, and sticking with a morning routine. So I'm going to give an example. One bad habit that I have is I am a recovering workaholic. So working till I literally pass out at night. And I find myself waking up with my work clothes on, haven't taken my jewelry off yet. And so that's just not a healthy way to fall asleep. I would rather be awake when I'm, getting ready for bed. So I also need an evening routine. So my goal is to be in bed at a certain time every single night, to wake up at the same time. And I think by doing that, I think a lot of other things that are kind of not aligned as well as I would like them to be will just fall into place, because I'm getting the proper amount of rest that I need. I'm getting up on time, getting up on time, make sure I have time for devotion. I have time to do my little 10-minute workout in the morning, and I can get to work on time. So they all kind of tie in together. And one thing that I'm determined to do this year is live intentionally and not allowing my time, finances, or health to control or dictate me. I am in the driver's seat. So I want to have total control over those 3 areas. So that's kind of my answer. That's my extended answer to number one. Would anybody else like to chime in to answer one thing you plan to give up this year?
Shall I be the first to chime in?
Of course. Help yourself.
Okay, I'm feeling all of yours.
Okay.
There are some of the things that I'm working on, but one of the biggest for me that I'm giving up this year, and it's a work in progress, is self-doubt.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's one thing that has kept me from accomplishing so much more than I could. And I remind myself that when I doubt myself, I'm doubting what God has made. So,
yes,
the talent, the creativity, just all these things that I have not tapped into. So I'm working on that. I still have to, remind myself. Your morning routine you mentioned, I started doing that. That became something that I guess I evolved into. It wasn't changing or giving up this year. But another thing, I only had thought about the self-doubt because that's the biggest thing I think, and self-belief, but procrastination, mentioned tracking. That's on my list, but I didn't put it up here yet because I'm not quite there. I think I'm gonna get there.
But with you being a financial professional, I mean, that's one of your biggest selling points. You tell people you got to know your numbers.
I do. I mean, I almost obsessively will look at my finances. Now that I do track. But I think more of the tracking that I'm referring to is within my business, tracking, not just making calls, but how many calls did I make, because I'll just go in and just start making them and things like that. So tracking results. I mean, we got to do that to, to grow. And lastly, I think I've been working on this for a long time and my girlfriends, my sisters here can attest to this. Being on time. Look, I am on time. I don't miss a movie. I even get to the previews, and I will not miss a flight. But for some reason, when it comes to just something I'm doing for myself with my friends or whatever it is, I can't be on time. And I shouldn't say can't. I will take that out of my vocabulary. I'm working on that. Because I do want I don't want to be known as the one who's always late, although I already am. So I mean, I'll work that down. But what I say, don't judge me, pray for me.
No, I'm in the same exact boat. And in fact, I didn't know, people are always watching you. You don't really know who's watching you. So I got caught one day because I'm a teacher full time. So my usually I'll send my dean like a text message to say, hey, I'm running a few minutes late, I'll be right there, or I'll say I'm running 10 minutes late. But I guess I had done that one time too many, and the principal
I can already feel it.
My principal was waiting for me one day outside the classroom, and I'm like, oh boy. So he said, I need you to show up to work on time. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. So I did good, but it's like I was saying, with your evening routine, just ours in general, I really don't have one that exists right now, which is really, really bad. If I went to bed at the correct time, I would be able to get up and have time to do all the things that I want to and know I can do in the morning. So I am able to get to work on time. So I am definitely not making excuses for myself because then I started it was like hit and miss, but I was doing a little bit better. And then if you don't make those minor corrections or alignments, then you're just going to kind of slip into your old habits. And that's why I said this year, I'm just being intentional, everything I'm looking at this year and introspectively, it's all coming down to habits. And I just wanted to share this one quote with you all that I heard Creflo Dollar say one time. Dr. Creflo Dollar, Pastor Creflo Dollar says, watch your thoughts, they become your habits. Watch your habits, they become your character. watch your character, it becomes your destiny. And I love that because I don't think like a lot of us take habits seriously. And it's really bad when other people start pointing it out. Like, being late, like of course it can like affect you professionally, but sometimes we judge other people because we are like, well, I don't smoke, I don't drink, I don't do this and that. But it's like, well, how are you looking at some of these things? We don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, but like, what if my job was solely dependent on me getting to work on time? Like, then it becomes a serious issue. So I think sometimes we look at things and we don't take it as seriously as we should, because it's like, well, it's not really a life or death situation if I'm like 5 minutes late. But when you accrue it over time and you see like, and the other thing too is that I kind of got some slack because I'm usually one of the last teachers to leave. So that goes back to time management again. So they don't really give me that much of a hard time, because I'm like, if I'm staying at work until 4 or 5 every day and everybody else is out of the parking lot at 3:30, they don't give me they don't make as big of a deal out of it as they could. But it just helps you to put things into perspective that, being late, like consistently, and people who can predict how late you're going to be, that becomes an issue, because it starts to question your credibility. And if you tell somebody you're going to be somewhere at a certain time and you consistently show up 5 or 10 or 15 minutes after, then they're saying that, it kind of makes the other people feel that are waiting on you that, they're not that important. And I don't want my kids to feel that way when I show up to school, that, oh, it's okay for Miss O'Neill to get to school 5, 10, 15 minutes late. That's showing, because it kind of does it sends an unintentional message to the people that are waiting on you. So this year, along with tracking, that is definitely one of the things that I've been working on, because the reason why I showed up a lot to certain things was that I just didn't think it was that big of a deal. But if you had something really important to get to, you would be there. Like you said, you get to your flights on time, because if you miss a flight, you're going to be out of some money, and it's an inconvenience. So, I think for things that are really important to us, we make sure that we make time for those things. So that's like my little soapbox, but I am with you 100%. That's definitely an area that I have to get down. And back to routines, like, the Lord had been working with me for a while to put my lunch out, like prepare my lunch the night before, because most I eat leftovers during the day, and to lay my clothes out the night before. And if I could just get those 2 things down, I would be golden.
I'm gonna tell you, you're right. You will be. That's something I've had to do, because the job that I took, because I do still work full time.
Mm-hmm.
The job that I took, I committed. He said he's my director. He's an ex military and an attorney. And
goodness.
Oh yes, being late. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. He believes that if you're late, you do not care. It reflects upon your work and everything else. So I was like, well, I already said I'm no problem. I'll be on time. So I have had to, over these last few, and I've worked from home for the past 5 years.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to get dressed, much less go in there and try to find something that fits. Right. So
right.
It does help. It does help. And the more you do it at night, it, like you said, it becomes a habit, and it's just something you do. You put it into your routine, and your morning self will thank your night self every day.
Well, that was the other problem. When you work till you're ready to collapse, the last thing you want to do waking up at 11 o'clock or midnight, sometimes 1 o'clock in the morning, is like pick out clothes for the next day. You're like, I'm exhausted, I'm going to bed. So it just becomes a vicious cycle. So I'm working on getting out of that.
I'm with you. I'm still working on it. I have to do it, and some days I don't. Like last night was one of those nights. I had stuff I needed to do, and I was tired, and I was like, I need to wash my face, and I need to do this, and I'm like, but that feels so good. A pillow one.
The pillow wins so many times.
Too many.
Oh my goodness. So yeah, anybody else want to chime in on routines or habits or anything like that related to question number 1? We just like spilling the tea, and no admittance on any other guest on the show. Anybody want to put anything in the chat box? I guess
I would say my finances, because I've been really hard on my
Mhm.
finances right now. I don't know, because I've been listening about finance, and I kept on thinking they said like your finances are connected to your behaviors, and I know if I feel emotional, I tend to spend more money. You know,
Mhm.
like they say, emotional eater. I was like, maybe I'm emotional spender. So I've been trying to watch when I spend money, because now I'm trying to make sure I get out as much debt as possible.
I'm
So
with you,
yeah.
Francine.
That's huge.
So yeah, I do think I'm an emotional eater, and there were some things at work that I was over the top. I was overwhelmed, and what I would do is like I would turn to the sweet and salty snacks. And the thing is like it gives, just like with any other vice, it gives you like a temporary relief, but after you're done, they always have negative side effects. So the sweet and salty snacks, it was great for the time. And so then, I was so proud of myself because like for one of the first times ever, I didn't, like, since I've been an adult, I did not gain weight at Thanksgiving. So I was so excited and proud of myself. And then the Christmas holidays came, and I kind of, because it was like a longer break from work, I kind of started, falling into some of those bad routines where I started eating too much food and too many sweets, too many desserts because of the holidays. Because a lot of times, one thing that trips up a lot of Christians, I think, is food and finances, because there are two things that you can't live without. Like, you have to eat and you have to spend money. So those are two things that can become a vice if they're not stewarded properly, but that they're also a necessity. So for me, so I started getting into a little bit of a ditch come Christmas time. So I started working myself out that ditch and getting back on track. And then my birthday came up last weekend. I was hanging out at the Cheesecake Factory. I brought cupcakes for the kids at school. So it's like, wait, I got to get control over this. So one thing that I did with the weight is that I said, I just like made a line, drew a line in the sand. I said, I'm not going over this weight. And so I know when I'm getting close, like you have to make adjustments so that I don't go over that particular weight. And then in terms of the finances, like I had some part-time income coming in that was put on hold. So it helped me see some things in a totally different perspective. Cause it's like, as much as we might complain about extra income or that extra part-time job, when that gets cut off, you're like, oh, wow. I'm gonna have to move on to plan B like real fast. I've got to make some more adjustments in the area of finances. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Francine, is like, have you actually put a budget together, and how well are you sticking to the budget that you have in place right now?
I made a budget because I don't want to tell myself, but I got scammed out of money last year, and
Oh,
the bank put me on a budget. So,
oh,
because
wow.
I got to pay them back, because I was trying to get a loan to get my car fixed, but it didn't work out that way. Somebody called, and they wasn't a real loan company, so the bank
Oh,
was like, "Okay, you just got to pay us back the money that they tried to take out of your account." It's a long story.
I
So
see.
the bank put me on a budget, pretty much. I had to write down my whole budget there, and I still make adjustments because I lost my second income. I'm at a
Mm,
different job right now as a part-time job. It's a little better, but I had to make adjustments with that. So I've been trying to figure out ways I can make extra income to make
mhm.
sure I cover the expenses. Yeah. So, because it's like you gotta factor in emergencies, and that's what I don't do. You have
Yeah.
everything down, But then our emergency, you have like your car breakdown, you need a new tire, or
Right.
just random stuff happen. Like I have to start thinking like that in advance as well. So.
Yeah, I totally understand 100% where you're coming from, Francine. I feel your pain for sure. So, and I'm with you. Like when we talk about budget, I think a lot of times the emphasis, and you can chime in on this, Kim, because you're a financial professional, but a lot of times we think, what's coming in, like what's my income, what are my expenses? But you almost at this point is like savings is becoming a necessity because like you said, if you don't save, then when there is an emergency, there you're going right back into debt again. So it's like, like I was saying about the evening and morning routine, it's like we continue to fall into these ruts because of a lack of savings or planning or whatever. And so I can use myself as an example. 2.5 years ago, I purchased a home as an investment property. Real estate in Michigan is really, really interesting, especially depending on what area you're in. Some people think like it's the best place to invest. Other people don't think it's that great of a place to invest for real estate. But I only planned to hold on to this house for a year and I was going to flip it. Well, once I got into the house, one thing that I didn't find out about during the inspection was that there was mold and mildew in the house because you couldn't physically see it with your physical eyes. So I was getting some like minor repairs done. They came in, I think it was like a leak or something in the bathroom. And they had to pull part of the wall back to get to the leak, and they found mold everywhere. Like it was all over the bathroom, and I had no idea. And so after that, they continued to find mold all throughout the house. So I started what once was supposed to be an investment property where I was going to, flip it in a year. I ended up getting caught up in this kind of trap where I ended up having so many more, like $25,000 in mold remediation repairs that were totally unaccounted for. So I'm still paying for it today. Well, as a result, I had to end up getting a line of credit on the house. And I mean, I could write a book about the whole experience, which to me kind of turned into a nightmare, but it was a learning experience. Did not plan on having the house this long. It was only supposed to be a year. It's going on 3 years now. So I really started to get underwater with this house. And I was really struggling to keep paying the mortgage. And finally, after two years, 3 months, I was able to find a tenant. My realtor found a tenant for me. So that did give me some temporary relief. But this is a short-term lease. So it's only 10 months, not even a full year. So that does give me a little bit of breathing space to figure out what I'm going to do with the house after that. But I'm only giving that as an illustration to show how you think that you're good. And, when you make an investment like that everything is going to work out. And it's like, it doesn't always work out. And one thing that I remember that another financial advisor in the Detroit area, Ellis Liddell, he had once said was, you pray and hope for the best and plan for the worst. And that is really, really good financial advice because you could not have told me in a million years that I was going to go through anything like this ever. And I mean, my mom, she sold real estate. I've been a former real estate agent. I have my license with the state now. I had never seen anything like what I've been through in the last 2 years. So, when they say my grandmother used to say that like an ounce of precaution is worth a pound of good. I was like, oh my goodness. And part of it goes back to me kind of I was in a situation where I needed to find another place to live quickly. So me rushing and purchasing on impulse. And then I didn't really have an inspector that I really knew and trusted. So I asked my realtor for some referrals, which was probably a mistake because, she had a vested interest in selling me the house. So of course she's gonna ask one of her friends, and I'm not saying he was not, being honest or walking in integrity, but he for whatever reason, I don't know if he didn't check for mold and mildew or whatever, but he didn't say anything about it in the inspection report. So obviously he wasn't doing a thoroughly enough job. And all I can do now is hope and pray that I will find a buyer to purchase this house that I'm trying to get out of now. But depending on how major the investment is, like a car or an auto or a home, like we always want to be prayerful, because sometimes things happen to us and we go through things that you can't always see with your physical eye, but like knowing God's character and knowing that he's all knowing. My boyfriend was even like, the house actually, when you walked in, was a little uneven, like the flooring was uneven. And he's like, I wouldn't purchase a house, with the foundation not being even. But I didn't think that much of it. And I even called some contractors and brought them out because I wanted them to tell me how much that repair would cost. So I had already factored that particular repair on leveling the house, the crawl space out. And that was like $14,000. But I hadn't factored this other, tens of thousands of dollars in for the other repairs. So it's like sometimes we get ourselves into situations, and before you know it, we're caught up in an avalanche of like financial debt or whatever situation it is. And all you can really do, with some situations is just pray to ask God to show you how to get out of those situations. So I didn't really mean to go into all that detail, but I just wanted to kind of give you that as an example. So Angie has some questions here. How does your faith shape the way you view money, not just earning it, but keeping and giving it? Kim, do you want to answer that question?
I love all of these questions. First of all, money doesn't come to you without putting it out. You reap what you sow. It's all biblical, right? So the more of a giver you are, the more of a recipient you will be. And when you are a good steward, obviously you steward little and God will give you more. So I see that is a faithful thing, in giving and tithing and just helping someone else, and no matter where you are financially, you may have more than someone else does. And it's not necessarily money. I know that we're talking about money specifically, but giving of yourself, your time, and time is infinitely more valuable than money as well. So there's all of that. Faith has a lot to do with earning it and giving it, because when you believe that God is going to bless you in ways that you will see opportunities to earn. That's one of the things that has hit me over the last couple years. And I think there's another question that Ange has in here about, have you ever experienced a tangible blessing or breakthrough in obedience and giving? And then there was another one that kind of goes with that, as far as tithing when you don't feel like you have it.
Yeah.
The best time. And I tell you this from experience. When I was tithing as a child, I knew it worked. But, as a child, you don't have any bills, right? You just doing what your parents taught you to do. You go into church, you give your 10%, 10% to God, 10% to savings. That, then you get bills, and then the world hits you, and all this happens, and you stop tithing. Well, that was my roller coaster. But over the last couple years, God has really taken me through, humbling me to a point of completely breaking me down. And that's when I started tithing again. And that's when things started changing financially. I was still, working with people and helping them on their budgets. And I'm listening to Francine, and I'm just like, oh girl, this is what we do. We help with budgets. and this is something we do over Zoom too. So it's not like, it doesn't matter where you are in the world, really. But yeah, the tithing of with a little, and like he says, if you are a good steward over a little, then he will increase you to be a steward over more. But if you can't show that you are able to steward what little you have, then why get more to mess that up? You know what I mean? That's kind of
right.
how
Absolutely.
But yeah, no, I think, and I love these questions, but yeah, it's all about faith. It's all so biblical. And then like you're saying, what does biblical stewardship mean in today's consumer driven culture? It's still the same thing. Go back to the Bible. That's your whole, that's the whole walk of life. Everything answer or question that you have, the answer literally is right there. It's right.
Got mine too. Yeah, so I can definitely say, that tithing is important, and there are times where, I had to make a decision on if I was going to tithe or pay that particular bill. And I will tell you, like, tithing comes up. It needs to be priority number one, because I did not know that I was going to have this temporary hold on some of the part-time income. And sometimes we think, well, I'll just catch up, or I can make this up. But you really don't. Our blessings and increase, they all come from God anyway. The blessings that he gives us. Now, I've talked about before how we can try to bless ourselves, but sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. So I've said before, and with last week's blog on my website, thatmanjesus.com, that a lot of times when we attempt to bless ourselves, that's temporal. And I think of the parable in the New Testament where it talks about, I believe it's in the book of Luke, the prodigal son, where he wanted his inheritance early. An inheritance is supposed to be for someone who's died. Well, his dad was still alive. And, I know parents that give funds to their children and their grandchildren while they're still alive, but that's usually on the parent. That's a parent's decision to make. In this case, the prodigal son, he went to his father and said, I want my inheritance early. Well, what did he do with it? He practically destroyed his life, and he ended up coming back humbly with nothing. So I think that's a prime example of how, that relationship between God and his child, well, between the prodigal son and his father, I think sometimes that's how we as children of God, sometimes that's how we treat God. Like, we want him to bestow all these blessings on us, but sometimes we don't get those blessings because he knows that we're not ready to receive them. And like you had said earlier, we're stewards over what he blesses us with. So I don't have a problem paying tithes, which is he's only asking for 10%. That's really not a lot when you think you still have 90% left, because it all belongs to him anyway.
Amen.
And it also protects you from, it says that he rebukes the devourer when we pay our tithes. So it protects his children as well. So I feel like it's has multifold benefits. And then he says, if you ever do skip a tithe, to pay it back with interest. So had I not known that this part-time job was gonna, I was gonna have a hold on this income, there's some things I would have done differently, even with my last paycheck. So we can't always feel like, well, I'll just, it's kind of going back to that time of the place where we talked before, getting to places late. Sometimes we do the same thing with God. Well, I'll just catch you next time on the next paycheck. Well, that's not guaranteed. So it's best to just pay him first. And like I said, with in the morning with devotions, to pay him first and to spend that time with him in the morning, because you don't know if you'll get that time back again the rest of the day. Then you're going, to the next day. Well, I'll catch God tomorrow. Until pretty soon it's going to be a habit where you're not really spending any time with him, or just, praying over your food. And, if you fall, it's just as easy to fall into the habit as it is out of. So that's why all of these life coaches and people like that, they say like, do the habit for 21 days or 30 days, because it'll be harder to break it if you just keep it, and it'll start to build a momentum. So, yeah, so it's vitally important. It really is. And
I think you made I'm sorry. I was going to say, you made a great point in basically giving your first fruits, the first fruits of your day, the first fruits. And God will do more for you with that 90% than he will with 100. And that's proven. So I've seen it proven in my life, you know.
And the thing is, when you don't pay the 10%, that 90% just flies, the 100% flies right out the door. It goes real fast.
It does. It does. And I see. Okay, Angie has another one. What did she say? This one hit me too. How can believers give faithfully without falling into guilt or pressure-based giving? That's huge. And also that ties in with, how do you reconcile tithing when finances are tight or debt feels overwhelming? First of all, God loves a cheerful giver. So he doesn't want you to give if you feel like it's guilt or pressure based. And you should never, when you go into a church, because a lot of churches are about religion, and a lot of that religion is based on one or two scriptures that's telling you have to do this or do that. But when you're giving because you're coming from your heart, and God knows your heart. God also knows your situation. So that was one thing for me that was like, when I was at my lowest, it was a prayer thing. It was like, I don't know how my rent's being paid, but my rent was never late. Not 1 month. When I had lost $40,000 of my income, not once did my rent go late. But what I found is that reminding myself, and there was a song I just kept playing, Tamaraman. God provides. I'm like,
I love that song too.
Absolutely does. And just reminding yourself of that, but don't ever give out of guilt. That's definitely not where, maybe there's more that you need to grow at that point, or build that relationship with the Lord at that point. God knows your heart, and he knows your position. So, and if you come in there and you really don't have it, but you I'm gonna start with $1, I'm gonna start with this or that. And I'm not saying that, because I can't tell you what God is saying at that point when you're just giving $1. Maybe he'll put more in your pocket so that the next time you're giving $2 and $3 and $4, and now you're up to $5. So I would never advise anyone to give out of guilt.
Yeah, and not just churches, but like some of these nonprofit organizations. I don't want to name any specifically, but like the commercial, I'll be like watching a YouTube video, and this commercial just pops up out of nowhere, like give today. And I'll give, like, this is an example, like you see some of these animal related shelters, and you see like the little dying dog. You're like, oh, the dog's about to die. I can't let the puppy die. And it's like, give $9.99. All we need is $9.99 a month. And you're like, okay, it's kind of like that emotional, it's pulling on your emotional strings, or like, with children and giving to certain funds. And, but I get the guilt giving, because it's like, wait a minute, you kind of have to have a reality check. Like, I'm barely paying my bills. I don't have the money to send to this nonprofit right now. So it's kind of, but yeah, I totally know what you're saying. And, I think sometimes people don't want to go to church. And I think a lot of guys feel like this is because it's like, well, I'm just lining the pastor's pocket, when they're not really seeing that the real purpose is that you're really giving to God. And yes, like his men and women of God that are in the pulpit, in the fivefold full-time ministry, they do need to be paid. So, their work is just as important as everybody else's, but we don't want to be in the position like we feel like, our emotional strings are being pulled on when we do go to a service. And there's other churches out here, well, they have like certain lines you have to give in to give. And I don't really get into all of that, but like you said, I feel like you hit the nail right on the head. You kind of have to be spirit led. And we know the Bible says to give tithes and offerings. We know that tithes is 10%, but Well, I will say is that when we miss a tithe, to pay back with interest. But what God will do as well is he'll give you ideas on how to start to tackle some of that debt, so you don't feel like I'm stretched so thin that I don't have any money to give. Like every time another bill came and another repair came, I was still paying my tithes during those times. I'm still going to make sure that the mortgage is getting paid. So I don't, like you saying before, God is not going to put you in a position where you're paying tithes at the expense of losing a car or a house. He's going to show you what to do. Like, I was just on the phone today talking to a couple of creditors saying, hey, I have a temporary hold on some income. What can you do to help me? And they know that if you have a decent to good credit report, you are one of those people, because you're trustworthy, who pays your bills typically on time. They usually will give you some more time. They can put a payment on the back of a loan. There's different things that they can do to help you out. When
That's
you're trustworthy with your finances.
That is a great point, because I think too many people think that, like you said, God provides, but God also gives you a brain.
Wisdom, yeah.
Wisdom, absolutely. So these things and things start to come in front of you that you can take advantage of to help yourself. So those are the things that I've seen happen. Not just, oh, I'm gonna sit back here and God's got this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's
and like people like, or they go to church and like, yeah, I'm in need, so I'm gonna get that holy handshake. And literally all of my times of going to church, I've gotten like what people gave, like when my mom passed away, I get a couple dollars in a card. But like in terms of a holy handshake with a substantial amount of money, that happened one time in my life. So God is not like a genie. It's much more likely that he's going to give you an idea or tell you, call this creditor, say this, than somebody just walking into church and like giving you $10,000. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but here's the thing: when you do have those types of miracles, those financial miracles, there's no guarantee that it's going to happen again. He wants us dependent on him. And it'd be far greater for him to give you a godly idea on like how to start a business, so you never run out. So you're not like the children of Israel having to depend on God for miracle to miracle, because we really don't want to put our livelihoods in somebody else's hands like that. And God is the ultimate giver, but and he works through people. But I would rather be like that woman in the Bible who she gave that cruise of oil, and God told her to start an oil making business. And it said that her and her son lived for many days after that. So I'd rather have something more sustainable than dependent on going to church or somewhere and somebody giving me a holy handshake.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm looking at Angie's comments over here.
I wish Angie would be a part of this conversation, because she is
Kind of is over here.
She's over here preaching too. She's got Bible scriptures. She got the whole gamut going on.
I love that. Beyond tithing, I like to consistently give back in the moment. That is a part of offerings. I do believe. I believe that the Bible is saying that 10% goes to God and to his kingdom.
Yes.
But I do also believe, like, what does that mean? Sometimes it's his people, right? Like, I'm still I give mine to church that I know is helping. That I'm confident in, but some people may not have a church home and still want to give and know that they're giving to the right places. So kind of like Angie's saying, giving to just giving back in the moment, or giving to the poor, or giving to someone that can use the help. I'm not speaking out of absolutes here, but I kind of feel like you're rewarded for that as well. And maybe that is a part of the tithe. You know what I mean? I know you're rewarded for it. I do know. I can say that with almost utmost certainty, but I feel like, is that a part of the tithe if you're giving to, God's people? You know what I mean? And the right people, because you mentioned it earlier. You can't always
Can't
just
get to everybody.
to everybody, right? Some people are not the right people to give to. So I mean, that's discernment, and that's, like I said, being led by the Spirit and all of that. So what else does she have over here?
I love the scripture that she gave, the borrower is slave to the lender. You are absolutely right. And the Bible also says pay who you owe. She's quoting Proverbs 22:7 here. So if we know as adults we got ourselves into a mess or a debt, I take full responsibility for purchasing that house because I signed the deed. So at some point we have to put on our big old girl draws on and be like, I put myself in this situation, I'm solely responsible for this. And I think sometimes when we're accountable to ourselves and we're honest with ourselves, God begins to work with us because that shows that we're being humble. But he also says when you give to God, when we give to the poor, rather, that we're giving to the Lord. When we lend to the poor, we're giving to the Lord. But why does he say that? Because he knows most of the time the poor are not going to pay us back. So we always want to, God is a giver. He gave his only son, Jesus Christ. So we always want to be in that giving mode and open to his spirit. I have been at the same church for, I left for 4 years, but I say 20 years. And so, that's where I pay the tithe. But I just gave one of my friends a few $100s. That was less than a month ago. I consider that more of an offering. But what if I didn't have a church home? I mean, the most important thing is to continue to keep your heart open. And I think if you're giving 10% somewhere, wherever you're getting fed spiritually, that might be online, or, you might not have a physical sanctuary that you go to, but that is your tithe. And I believe that God honors that. I
believe that too. Hey, I wanted to say something. When you gave that whole testimony to your story about your
the house
rental property, right? What I heard you say was that you took a chance on a gift that God gave you to learn a lesson, to become a better landlord, a better property owner, a better, it's a lesson learned. So a lot of times when we ask God for those blessings, depending on what we're asking for, like you ask for patience, God puts you in a situation where you are tested, right?
Yes.
So you ask for increase. God shows you this house you got to get into, and eventually you will be increased, because the next purchase that you go into, the things to look for, you know what I'm saying? So I just see all of it as there's nothing that I can look back, nothing that you said, or nothing that I can look back on my life, or a lot of things that people look at and go, I just had a bad day, or I had a bad experience, or I'm going through all of this. It definitely sucks when you're going through it.
Right. But
when you can get through it and look back and go, thank you. Because I would not have been as strong as I am now, or I wouldn't the next time something like that happens, or if it happens to someone else. And that's really what we're here to do, to serve each other, right? So my experience, your experience with that home, when I'm ready to go buy a house, I don't feel like I gotta go through all kinds of stuff that somebody else has gone through. I'm like, I'm listening. I want to know what not to do, so I don't have to go through it, right? So we share.
Yeah, that's one of our mottos, is to connect, share, and grow. And the Bible talks about how iron sharpens iron. So when we're doing this sharing, it's for us, to walk away with some takeaways, to know what to do in the future, what not to do in the future. So I think that absolutely there was definitely a lesson to be learned throughout the whole incident. And it's still ongoing. That's the thing. This is still not over. So you talk about patience, to be paying a mortgage for going on 3 years when you thought you were only going to be paying it 1 year, that is definitely, next time I know, count the cost before you jump into anything. Because it's like, when you do things like this, you say, well, I'll just do this, I'll get out of it in a year. What if you don't get out of it in a year? What then?
Yeah.
Like some people, especially the bigger the commitment, the more you have to think about what's the worst case scenario. That's counting the cost before you even jump into something. Just like, some people get married. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I have no problem with the whole institution of marriage, but they come in thinking that one person takes vows and says death do us part, and the other person that they might be marrying or thinking, if this doesn't work out, I'm getting out of this. Well, it might not be as easier for you to get out of it as you think it's going to be. So these are all things that I think, you know, when we're making major decisions, such as, you know, marriage or purchasing a home, these are all things that we have to think about.
No, for sure.
Yeah, if I lose this job, how am I going to pay these bills? What am I going to do? You know, if X, Y, and Z happens. And I think if we kind of think like that, and I hate to sound negative or morbid, but I think if we think like that, we'll be more proactive in making plans. So God forbid, if the worst case scenario does happen, hey, I've got 3 or 6 months of savings set aside. And that way we're not so, you know, overwhelmed and, you know, walking around feeling defeated when these types of things actually take place, because we had a plan in place already.
Absolutely. And look at Miss Ange over here. Luke 14:28.
She's
Suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Won't you first sit down and estimate the cost? Amen.
Amen. So thank you for finding the scriptures.
Right? There you go.
Yeah, she's finding the scriptures, that because I'm not giving the addresses, so I appreciate that. Next time you got to be part of the call.
Exactly.
I can't keep up with all of her little messages.
That's okay. I'm over here. I'm in the chat. I'll be a little co-host. Let's see. Kim, what is your perspective? Is debt always a lack of faith, or can it be a strategic tool when used wisely? I think everything, well, I think everything leads back to some sort of faith, but it absolutely is a strategic tool when period, like when used properly. Absolutely. Because if you think about it, it's not just God's children who are being prospered, and actually most of us are not, but it's not because God doesn't want that for us. He wants us to be abundant. And like you had mentioned, and it kind of touched me when you were saying that some people don't want to give to the church because the pastor's got that. The pastor's supposed to, like you said, he's supposed to have, you know, be prosperous,
well taken care of. Yeah,
exactly. And it doesn't matter how big or small. It's what, you know, what that relationship is between him, her, and God, him or her and God. But not feeling bad because you give your tithe and this, you know, man or woman is driving a Cadillac. If they are really truly serving the Lord, they should be, or whatever the car. I just said Cadillac, you know. But
if they, so the flip side of that is if they're driving a hoopty, you have something. The people they don't have something to say too. And they're like, how can you say God's prospering you? You driving a hoopty, you can't win. So it's like, don't try to please people.
No, absolutely not. But yeah, it is a tool. And what I was getting at, basically, you know, we see rich people who are evil, right? We see people who use money, may not necessarily be evil, but they're not necessarily believers either. So yes, it's absolutely a tool, but the faith that they have is in their abilities. The faith that they have is in their ideas and their creativity. I mean, we have a lot of people who are entrepreneurs out there who are balling out, you know, millions and millions, and they are not believers, but they believe in what, you know, they're doing, right? So we need to do that. And it's not just about believing or speaking, you know, spiritually, or, you know, it is all about the Lord, of course, but it's also about believing and having the faith in what we're doing and what the talents that God has given us. So I do believe that money is, I don't know that debt is a lack of faith. I think a lot of debt is a lack of discipline. I think that's really the biggest thing. Discipline and not using it strategically, I guess, you know, but faith plays a lot in, I think, in prosperity.
Absolutely. And, you know, debt in and of itself is not a sin, because the prophet Elijah told the widow woman, he said, borrow empty vessels, not a few. So he told her to go to her neighbors and borrow. And there are some times in life where that is the only option that you have, is to borrow. because you have no finances. She's at the point of death. She said, me and my son are going to eat this bread and drink this little cruise of oil, and we're going to die. And so when you have some dire straits where debt is the only way that you can start to kind of get that momentum of money flowing back into your household. But like you said, there's other people who just went out, you know, such as the prodigal son, and they just kept on spending and kept on spending and kept on spending. You can't keep spending and not having, you know, an ongoing incoming source of income and expect it not to run out. And that's what happened to him. He had spent all that he had. And then he woke up one day and he's out there trying to eat some of the food the pigs are eating because he didn't have any left. So, you know, the Bible also says, I think in Proverbs, a fool spends everything that he has. And so, that's not using wisdom. That's the opposite of wisdom, to think that you can just keep spending and keep spending and keep spending. Even those of us who have an income, like I had 1.5 jobs until I have like this brief hold with what my part-time income. We can't keep doing the same thing either, because sooner or later, if you keep spending at that rate, you'll end up getting into 2 to 3 more times debt than you have an income. And it's very lopsided. And you can sneeze tomorrow and that job be gone. And what happens at that point? So I think it just helps you to put everything into perspective.
The one thing I'll say about that, and I know we are talkers, I can see this. I know this.
Yeah, we're on the final stretch now.
I'm gonna see this too, because all debt is not bad. Just like you made that comment about, you know, she borrowed, but
yes,
she was prospered right after that. There's a lot of good debt. There's good debt still. You know, in business owners get out of paying taxes legally through good debt. So there is good debt. Millionaires have debt. So debt is not all bad, but it's a lack of discipline when your debt is your master, when money is your master instead of you being the master over the money. So that's when, you know, when it's a detrimental.
Yeah, you know it's bad when the credit collectors are calling you instead of you calling them.
That part.
You're not answering the phone because you already know who it is. So one thing to think about, you know, in terms of counting the cost up, think about the next time you pull out that piece of plastic. Think about, how am I going to pay for this? If I lost my job tomorrow, how am I going to pay for this major expense that I'm about to, you know, pay for right now? And I think along with the lack of discipline, like you were talking about the debt, it's also a lack of patience, because what debt essentially is, especially like the leisure debt, like the shopping and buying stuff you really don't need, it is spending tomorrow's income today. So essentially, with all of the debt and the interest, we're saying what we need today is so important. I can't wait till tomorrow. I don't have the discipline to save. I'm just going to buy it right now.
Right. No, yeah, you're right. And that comes with discipline. That is discipline too. I mean, like you said, patience on. It's the discipline not to get the things that you don't need. Like you said, I wanted to touch on one other thing, since you're on your meal journey. This helped me, by the way, and I'm still remind myself every once in a while. It was brought to my attention. I follow, and I think Angie follows him too, Myron Golden. I think this is where I heard it. That food was the first temptation that the devil used and still does.
Absolutely. I used it.
No?
Yeah, I talked about Adam and Eve in my monthly newsletter. So you all have to take a look at my website if you haven't yet. I type thatmanjesus.com, and I type the address in the chat as well. So we've been on the call now and on the Google Meet for over an hour. I don't want to type you all's time, but I did have 2 questions, and if we can sum it up with this, our wrap up. My second question was, what's something new you are doing this year? And then last question, how will your life look different this New Year's Eve versus last New Year's Eve? So we'll wrap up with those 2 questions. I'll ask you first, Kim.
I thought we were gonna let the others talk this time.
Nobody's talking. Angie and Sandra, you
Angie
two can jump in
unmuted.
at any time.
I said, Angie unmuted. I thought she was ready.
Yeah, I hear some little.
She put that mute back on. I saw that.
Well, I can go first because I did take some notes on that too. So I said, sticking with my morning routine, creating better habits for the something new. And I said, tracking everything, writing down a budget, which I already started this week. And my goals so I can create a debt. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with Dave Ramsey, but I've taken the taken the class, the financial literacy class. I know all about the debt snowball, and I would start something, and then I would start this debt snowball, see some success, and feel like, oh, I'm good, I've got this, and I'd stop. So now I said, I'm just going to keep this going. If I've got to take this all the way up to the last debt, that's what I'm going to do. I'm taking it because I'm in a different season of my life. So I have to take these. I'm taking things that I took for granted 20 and 30 years ago. I'm taking them a lot more serious now. And then last question, how will life look different this New Year's Eve? So in addition to me already getting my vision board done, which I worked on before our last vision board party, last Saturday, I said living life intentionally, not allowing time, finances, or health to control me, but I controlling all of those, being a more disciplined person and being spiritually aligned to where God wants me to be and where I want to be by the end of this year. So those are my goals for the rest of the year.
Love it. I love it. For me, I have said I'm going to stretch myself professionally. It kind of still goes in line with that, over letting go of self-doubt.
Yes.
Putting myself in uncomfortable situations. That's how we grow. So I tend to, although I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I can speak to people. I'm more of an introvert than you think.
I'm an introvert as well, naturally. Yeah.
I would, if I could, I always said, if I could make all the money that I want to make and never talk to anybody, that would be my job. But I do love to help people and I love to educate, and the financial education is right up my alley. So I never thought it would be something I would be doing, but I'm going to put myself in places where there are people much more elevated than myself. And I tend to feel like I'm a child when I'm with people who are, more advanced in, their careers than I am. And I'm like, wait a minute, you're not a child. So that's that self-doubt and getting in uncomfortable situations. And then how I will see New Year's Eve this year as opposed to last year. I looked back on the year of 2025 and I said, wow, I've come a long way. God has brought me so far and this is good. And then I looked at it and I went, but you didn't do enough. Like you didn't help enough families. You didn't offer enough opportunities. You didn't. So it wasn't like I was coming down on myself. I was actually very happy with at least where I've come.
Yeah.
But this next year, I will look back and I will say I have 10x'd the number of families that I've helped to put protection in place for their families, to educate financially, to set their budgets and things like that. And to give opportunities. If you're looking for a part-time situation, hey, I'm your girl. Like I'm not even nationwide. Do it by Zoom. Like I am licensed in 10 states and I'll get licensed in any state that I can help somebody out. So that is what I will look back and say, girl, you did it. Now what's the next challenge?
Absolutely. I love that. And, we didn't talk about it today, but mentorship is a really big deal in getting you from where you are now, and some of us feel stuck now, to where you want to be. Even in 1 year, like you said, you're able to tangibly see the growth. You're not exactly where you want to be, but you see where you've come from. So hopefully that gives you hope. And I so appreciate Angie putting us in touch with each other. And when Angie's ready, I'm sure she'll be on the Google Meet. be participating more than just in the chat box, but we appreciate your chat comments. So thank you, ladies, so much. I'm so glad that you were able to come on today. I'm so excited about what God is doing with the ministry and the vision that he's placed and the people that he's connected me to. So we will be in touch. And Kim, whenever you want to come on the podcast, I promise I won't hold you as long the next time. We were trying to get to all of Angie's answers. We probably
No, I love it.
we would have wrapped it up earlier, probably if we hadn't had so much of her engagement on in the chat box. But she's receiving her healing, so I know she'll be with us, when she's ready.
Helping her daughter with homework.
For joining us tonight. I saw that too.
But let me, before you end, just say thank you so much. I think this is a great opportunity to just, have, thank you thank you, Angie, for recommending. And I love the connection. So I'm just as thankful as you are. I appreciate that. And yes, I'll come back.
Yay. And I actually, so I'm real estate licensed, but I sold insurance and real estate to combine together for 11 years. So I do have, some of them did lapse. I think I just have to take a little test with the state, but yeah, so we'll connect one off and
absolutely. Look, I got your number now.
You sure do. So I'm just going to let you all, I'm going to type in the YouTube channel so you know where to find us. As soon as we hang up, I'm going to go ahead and upload the video. It usually takes an hour to get ready, but just expect to see that this evening. And then, you can share this with your friends, refer back to it when we're back on, and you're interested in starting your own channel. So now you see, this is what I do. It's not that difficult.
No, more of a group situation. I think that's yeah.
And sometimes I just only have one guest on, so you just see it as more of a conversation, on Google Meet.
I like it. This was fun.
It seems really natural to you, and I totally know what you mean about being an introvert. I really didn't even talk until I was 3, and my own mom thought something was wrong with me because she's like, the girl's mute. She doesn't say anything. But you're in sales. It takes you out of that shell. You've got to talk to people if you want to stay in business. So it definitely helped me build a lot of, communication skills. So I'm appreciative of that time in my life. Oh, got a typo. Let me send it to you again. Yeah, it's at That Man Jesus Ministry on YouTube.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I've always been a talker, but it's been more when I'm comfortable with someone. It's getting comfortable. Once that happens, then I'm a bit of a talker. But when it comes to new people in a new environment and places that I'm not comfortable, it's like I want to just fall into the corner somewhere. But yeah. All right, I got it. That Man Jesus Ministry.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So look for it tonight. Well, I will let you all go. Like I said about that evening routine and getting to bed at a certain time, I'm quickly approaching that because I actually have to be at work at 7:30. So,
oh my,
it's early being a teacher. It's nice to get off at 3:30, but man, that morning time, getting up at 5 o'clock is not always fun. So I do have one more thing I have to get done tonight, in addition to washing dishes, and then I am going to bed.
Hey, I get up early too. I started making myself get up by 4, but I try to get up 3:30 so I can get more done. But that's a work in progress.
I know. I listened to Denzel Washington's motivational speeches too. He says he gets up at 3 o'clock and he's like 70 years old. I'm like, that's awesome.
That's ET.
I'm definitely not there yet.
Yeah. But all right, sweetheart. Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Everybody have a blessed night tonight. All right, Angie. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody. Thank you, Sandra. Bye-bye, everybody. I'm going to stop recording now.